Media. And in return, this spoiled child shows her mother cruelty.
You're listening to
Path of the Jedi
with your host, Ronnie Cruz.
All right, welcome to Path of the Jedi, the podcast where Star Wars meets personal development. My name is Ronnie Cruz, your host for this exhausting adventure. That's right, exhausting. Okay, so a couple of things. I'm feeling pretty drained. I have been feeling pretty drained actually lately, and I'm not gonna really get into it today. But it's just, it's just one of those things. For better, for worse, the good and the bad. Hiking and traversing the peaks and valleys, so to speak, of life. It takes work, right? It takes work. The highs and the lows. At least for me, right? It feels like it takes work, and it often leaves me feeling pretty drained. And today is one of those days, the last couple of days actually. And so, it's just something I'm navigating as always, but also exhausting because of what our characters are going through in Andor Season 2, Episode 3, The Harvest. Now, before I go on, please, if you haven't seen this episode, I will probably let out some spoilers. So go ahead and hit pause on the podcast. Go watch Episode 3 of Season 2 of Andor, and then come back and finish today's episode of Path of the Jedi. Exhausting because, man, our characters cannot catch a break. Our protagonists especially can't seem to catch a break. And one of the things that I really love about this show in particular, as a little bit of a tangent, is the fact that we can sympathize with all the characters across the board. I mean, mostly, all the main ones anyways, right? Because of the writing. The writing is so good. There's not a clear delineation between good guy and bad guy, so to speak. We have the Empire, of course, versus the Rebellion. The Empire representing bad guys and evil, and Rebellion representing good guys. However, the individuals working, let's say, under the Empire aren't entirely evil, right? We see so much humanity in the characters we find ourselves sympathizing with these individuals who are supposed to be, part of the bad guys. And same thing with the individuals in the Rebellion. Not everybody is completely wholesome and good, right? So like it makes it so realistic in terms of the humanity in the characters, and again, it's a testament to how good the writing is for this particular show. And so I again found myself sympathizing with everybody in this episode of Andor. I mean, just like it seemed like nobody could catch a break, right? Everybody was getting beat up on, figuratively and literally, right? Literally, we actually even lose a character, an actually very beloved character at that. Somebody, a character who I consider probably the nicest guy in all of Star Wars. We lose Brasso, one of the most reliable, the most stand-up characters at least in recent history that I can recall right now. He ends up getting killed. Trying to escape, right? Trying to escape. So we can't catch a break here. We can't catch a break on this show. And so by the end of the episode, I was completely drained. Exhausted. And that's why I chose that word for today. Not to say that this is going to be a downer episode or anything like that. It's just, it just really fits. I think knowing, especially the storyline, well, not everything, but the nature of this particular storyline as it leads into Rogue One, and then knowing where Rogue One ends, we can expect it to be a roller coaster ride. Just buckle up and prepare to be exhausted by the end of it, which, I'm here for it. I'm totally here for it. I am excited to watch the rest of the season and have these conversations with you. I appreciate when fiction transcends being just purely entertainment and makes you feel and think deeply. I mean, that's the whole crux of this podcast. We're able to have these conversations every week because the writing is so good, and it is so much more than just pure fiction. I mean, it's definitely fun and entertaining at the base of it, at the foundation of it. But again, it transcends and is so much more than that.
I'm going in. Cover me, Porkins.
For this episode, the theme that kept jumping out at me, although there are many, many that I could devote an entire episode to. For example, Cyril's relationship with his mother. I probably will dedicate a whole episode to just that topic alone, because we need to have a conversation about that. But for today, I kept seeing this particular theme repeat itself in pretty much all the storylines that are happening concurrently, and I just couldn't shake it. So we're going to talk about the theme of betrayal. Let's start with Mon Mothma. I think she's a good candidate to kick off this conversation with. Mon, we discussed last week, and how she was betrayed by her lifelong friend, somebody who I believe she felt like she could always trust and count on, is now blackmailing her, right? Sold her out. And so, or at least is planning to sell her out. And we see just in Genevieve O'Reilly's performance, beautiful performance, the betrayal on her face when she realizes that Tay is her dear friend is going to blackmail her, right? And so just the level of betrayal there is heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. And again, we see the heartbreak in Genevieve O'Reilly's performance, and then therefore we feel it, right? And then another heartbreak for Mon Mothma with her daughter Lida, right? This ingrate of a child. Golly, okay, so I might be a little harsh on Lida, but it's just like how cruel is this young child, especially after Mon showed her so much compassion and understanding in the last episode, and was really trying to make a connection in this one, right? Last episode, or I can't remember, maybe it was the first episode. Well, one of those, Lida was crying about her fiance, her betrothed, not wanting to hold her hand, right? And Mon, in this moment of tenderness, showed her so much love and compassion and understanding, and I really thought there was going to be a connection there. And then right before the wedding ceremony, Mon, wanted to show more compassion and understanding, seeing that Lida was perhaps super nervous and maybe even scared to go through with the ceremony, and in return, this spoiled child shows her mother cruelty. And again, we see the heartbreak, right? We see the heartbreak from the betrayal in Genevieve O'Reilly's performance. It's no wonder that for the rest of the episode, she decides to just get drunk. She just decides to get drunk because everybody's just beating on her. Everybody's beating on her. Luthen, his normal self, is just barking orders around and even dares to kind of throw her privilege in her face and hint that she's like, it must be nice to be as naive as you, right? Like he's just not a good person. I never liked Luthen, even in the first season. And then Tay Coleman, and then of course her daughter. Her husband is just kind of a sleazebag anyways. They have a cordial and civil relationship, but he's just kind of a sleazebag. So like she can't catch a break. She can't catch a break, and so it's no wonder, after just trying to be a good person all the time. And again, not that Mon expects anything in return, because she's not a transactional kind of friend. But you can only get beat up for so long before you just want to get drunk, right? And so I think it's very, very justifiable that she decides to just take a bunch of shots and dance the rest of the night away. And then you have the gang on Mina Rao, and Brasso being betrayed by somebody, or maybe multiple somebodies, who had been helping them the entire time they've been on the planet, up until the arrival, it seems, of the Empire. Really, again, heartbreaking. Obviously, it resulted in the death of Brasso, which I would hold Will at least partially responsible, had he not gone off, to see his girlfriend one last time, which I guess that's understandable. But had he not gone off, they wouldn't be in that position. At least Brasso would not have been in that position, and then as a result, Bix would not have been in that position to be assaulted, sexually assaulted, or attempted sexual assault, but definitely assault and battery. There was lots happening on Mina Rao, and betrayal on so many levels, that again resulted in the death of one of the members. There are a few more other instances of betrayal in this episode, but the last one that I kind of want to point out may not be necessarily as obvious as the other ones, and that is B2EMO, our little android hero. B for me is the innocent in all of this, right? He's just wanting to live his life, and I've talked about B before in past episodes. I've actually dedicated an entire episode for this character, this amazing character, to me, and I don't necessarily want to put labels on it. I'm not an expert, but to me he's very childlike, and in a sense he strikes me as a character, if human, that would be neurodivergent or special needs, or even on the autism spectrum, and so always requires adult supervision, and will always require a caregiver, right? And the betrayal is that Brasso didn't tell him that he was going to get left on the planet. All right, and I don't know, but maybe it's because I just find a deep connection to B, to this character, to this unassuming android. I felt a level of heartbreak, like getting left behind by your family. When you're that childlike, when you're that innocent, it's a level of betrayal that I think really supersedes all the others, because B is innocent, right? None of the circumstances that he finds himself in was or is a direct result of anything that he's done, or any decisions that he's made. And granted, I know that they've everybody around him, Brasso and everybody around him have done their best and are making what they might feel like decisions that are in his best interest. But B doesn't have the capacity necessarily to understand any of that, right? All he knows is he wants to be with his family, and now his family is leaving him. And so, in essence, this innocent child ends up being the collateral damage, right, in this episode of betrayal. Hopefully Talia will continue giving him good care. I think she will. She seems a very good person, and will take good care of B. But we know that he gets left behind, and from here, I guess we'll just have to see. So where is this conversation going? Where does this theme of betrayal take us, especially in the context of, lessons we can learn from it? I think you can't have a conversation about betrayal without talking about trust. I mean, the very definition of betrayal is a violation of trust. And so as I was jotting down my notes for today's recording, I remembered that I actually recorded an entire episode way back. This was one of the earliest episodes of Path of the Jedi. I recorded an entire episode about trust, and it was in an analysis of the movie Rogue One, as a matter of fact, which makes perfect sense. I mean, Andor leads right into Rogue One, right? This series, Andor, leads right into Rogue One, and both are filled with, themes that are, lots of political intrigue and lots of spy versus spy, lots of cloak and dagger, and lots of betrayal of trust as a result. And so, what I'm going to do, because I think I did a pretty good job with that particular episode, pat myself on the back. I'm gonna play you a clip from that. I'm gonna play you really the main talk about trust from that particular episode. So sit back, relax, enjoy this episode on trust from Rogue One.
Trust goes both ways.
All right, so this quote comes from Rogue One, a Star Wars story. And I chose this quote in particular primarily because I wanted to discuss something outside of the Jedi, right? I wanted to have a topic that did not involve Jedi to show that there is wisdom to be found in Star Wars without the Jedi from all the other myriad characters in the Star Wars universe. And then as I thought about it, the topic of trust really is a great natural next step in the progression of the conversation we're having here at Path of the Jedi. If you reference back and remember episode 9 of the podcast, we talked about creating a vision and goals for yourself with the mind frame that there are limitless possibilities. And then in episode 10, we talked about the fact that there is no such thing as luck. So I think trust is a great topic to talk about here on this episode. Now, this movie, Rogue One, it has a lot of themes. It has a lot of really strong themes that drive through it. The theme of hope, the theme of sacrifice are very prevalent. The theme of trust isn't necessarily as apparent as those other themes, but it's there nonetheless. And in fact, on my rewatch over the weekend of Rogue One, I really noticed that this thread of trust is deeply interwoven throughout the entire story. Now, this quote comes from a scene in the movie when our hero, Jyn Erso, has recently been recruited by the rebels, and she's on her first mission with another character by the name of Cassian Andor. Now, these two characters at this point in the movie don't really know each other very well, and so they're still trying to feel each other out, right? And so that's where we get this quote, trust goes both ways. This context gives us a great jumping off point to talk about trust because it involves interpersonal relationships. On the surface, I think it can easily be interpreted as trust being something that needs to be earned, right? Through this scene and the subsequent scenes in the movie, these two characters are continually having to kind of challenge each other and challenging whether or not they are willing to give the other person their trust. In our world, I think that's predominantly how people talk about trust, like it's something that needs to be earned, right? You have to earn my trust. But if you listen to the quote, I don't think that's necessarily what Jyn Erso is saying. When you take a look at what's happening in this scene, this whole conversation revolves around the fact that Cassian does not trust Jyn to carry firearms on this mission. And of course, Jin's response is, well, trust goes both ways. If you expect me to trust you, then you should be willing to trust me. Or better yet, how can you have that expectation of other people if you don't have that expectation of yourself? And there's such a brilliance to that. Jyn is saying to Cassian, if I have a gun or if I don't have a gun, whether you trust me or not is your decision. So you better choose to trust me because I'm keeping this gun, right? You see, trust doesn't happen as a result of what anybody else does or an external circumstance. It's the result of a decision. We either choose to trust or we choose not to trust. Oftentimes, we base that decision on external circumstances. We make the decision to trust or to not trust someone based on their actions, but it's still our decision nonetheless. And I get it. You know, we all go through things in life that can cause us to be less trusting of people. If you look at these two characters, Jyn and Cassian, both of them pretty much through their entire lives have lived nothing but difficulty, adversity, and challenges, right? Growing up outside of the law, growing up without a home, growing up during an participating in a rebellion and seeing battle and seeing death. All of these things can cause a person. I mean, I know this is extreme examples because it's from a movie, but it can really cause a person to be distrustful. As the movie progresses, you really start to see that the success of their mission hinges on their decision to trust or not trust each other. Thankfully, they chose to trust each other and ultimately end up fulfilling their mission, even though it was at the cost of their own lives. That's a whole different conversation. The point is, trust, like so many things that we've talked about on this show, is a choice. And I'll take it a step further and say that that choice, the choice to either give trust or to not give trust, can largely affect the quality of our life experience. Now, some people might say, I give my trust to people all the time. They just have to earn it first. I would really urge caution with this, guys. You got to be really careful with this kind of mindset. I would wager to say that people who walk around operating this way don't have very many friends, and the friends that they do have probably are really just surface friends, because honestly, who wants to be on the receiving end of a conditional friendship? Conditional trust is no trust at all. I mean, imagine this. Imagine if you had a friend who, every time you were around them, you felt like you were being measured, right? Measured by some unspoken standard or some unspoken expectation or condition. You don't know what those expectations or conditions are, but you know they're there. How would that make you feel? It would make you feel judged, naturally, right? Like you're stepping on eggshells every time you're around this person. You have no idea how to behave or how to act because you don't know what their expectations or conditions are. And before long, you're going to not want to be around that individual because who needs that in their life, right? And even if you did know what those conditions were, right? If you did know that if you did X, Y, and Z, this individual would trust you and this individual would be your friend, that's no friendship at all. That's more of a contractual agreement. So we have to be really careful with this mindset that people have to earn our trust because it can be very destructive, right? And you could potentially miss out on what would have otherwise been a beautiful relationship. Okay, so you might be asking, well, how do I know I won't be taken advantage of? How do I know that I can trust people? And the answer to that is you don't. That's what trust means. To trust is to not know, but have faith. I mean, we've all heard of the classic trust exercise, right? Where you fall backwards and you have faith that your friends will catch you. You have no idea what's going on behind you. You can't see them. You can't see if their hands are out or if they're ready to do it, but you have faith. You trust them anyways and you fall back, and what ends up happening? They catch you. That is the essence of trust. And in the movie Rogue One, we actually have a character that embodies this very ideal. In the movie, there's a character called Chirrut Imwe, played by the legendary Donnie Yen. For those of you who aren't familiar with the movie or haven't seen it yet, Chirrut is the blind, staff-wielding, ass-kicking sage that walks around with the mantra, "I am one with the Force is with me." I absolutely love this character because he, again, personifies everything that we've been talking about. He personifies trust. He has to implicitly trust everyone and everything around him because he can't see. He has to trust that his best friend and life partner doesn't actually shoot him or get him caught in crossfire. He has to trust that everybody that he's chosen to side and partner with has his back. He has to trust that this whole entire collective and crew are making the right decisions because he can't see. Towards the middle of the movie, in one of the battle scenes, Chirrut leaves the safety of the ship and starts walking towards the battle. And he says, and I quote, "I'm following Jin. The path is clear." Now, did he mean that the path was clear literally? No, of course not. He's blind. What he meant was he was following Jin because he's chosen to trust her. With that trust, he's surrendering judgment. He's surrendering conditions. In trusting Jin, he's trusting the path. He's giving into the process. He's accepting that the here and now, where they are, is exactly where they need to be at the moment. The Force is with me. I am one with the Force. What is that but a declaration of faith, a declaration of trust? And that's why he's not fazed by anything. So allow yourself to trust more freely. When you trust more freely, you'll begin to see people not for who you hope they aren't, but instead you'll begin to see them for the beauty of who they really are. When you trust more freely, you'll begin to see that what you're going through right now is exactly what you need to go through in order to get to where you want to go. And that is the conversation about trust. Hopefully it makes sense. In the context of betrayal, I think it's just how I operate. And, it's up to you how you want to operate. But I believe myself, at least, to be a very trusting individual, especially with people I just met, because I have no reason not to trust you if I just met you, right? I think instead of approaching people with pessimism and cynicism, I approach people with trust, and it's worked out pretty much most of the time. There is the very rare occasion that trust is betrayed, but that's very few and far between. And you know what? When it does happen, generally it's because of a miscommunication or misunderstanding, or number two, the person is realizes that there was a little bit of a mix-up and apologizes for it. Excuse me, my voice cracked there. Apologizes for it. But again, that's the exception and not the rule. Right? The overwhelming majority of people I've interacted with in my life have been very trustworthy and stand-up people who have shown me nothing but kindness, right? And gentleness in return. And I think the danger of treating people with cynicism and pessimism, right? Being skeptical of people before you even get to know them, you rob yourself of that. Right, you rob yourself of the gentleness and the kindness that I think is innate in everyone. You call me naive, but I think I will always believe in the goodness of humanity, and I still, at least in my life experience, have not been proven wrong about that. Sure, we might see it in fiction and in media and on news and the internet and social platforms and things like that. We see people maybe being ugly and hateful towards each other and there's all that crap. But it's really never been my experience, right? Again, few and far between. Not enough to make me jaded and pessimistic and cynical about humanity. I think largely humanity is kind and is gentle, and we should be more trusting to be able to experience and receive some of that kindness and gentleness. I don't know. Maybe I've just been lucky in my life, or again, maybe I'm just being naive. But I will always, I think, because of my experience with people, I will always believe in the goodness of humanity. So anyways, it sounds like rose-colored glasses and pie in the sky, but let's move on to the shout-out. Yep. This week's shout-out goes to JC and Brian of Heyday Music. That's right, JC and Brian of Heyday Music. Now, what is Heyday Music, you might be asking? Well, I will leave a link to their Instagram in the show notes of this episode. Heyday is a music store in Asheville, North Carolina. They specialize in stringed instruments and amplifiers. Buy, sell, and trade, right? So used gear and repair as well, I in recent months, decided to sell my electric guitar. I have a Les Paul. I had a Gibson Les Paul, and so I took it to their shop, and they were willing to buy it. Really painless interaction. And I'm not really good at that kind of thing because I just, again, as I said, I kind of automatically trust people. But I know there are other other instances, other shops that may not necessarily take care of the people, but may not necessarily take care of you as good, right? Like especially some of these bigger box stores that I hear horror stories about. But Brian and JC, they were great. They were really great. They were incredibly helpful, and I feel like they gave me a fair price for the guitar. So that was the first interaction, and then I noticed they had some pretty good guitars up on the wall. So I started following their Instagram and keeping track of their website because I was on the market for a Fender Strat, an American Fender Strat to be more specific, and to even be more specific than this, an American Fender Strat with a maple neck, with a maple board. There's just something about that particular guitar and how it feels. I've never owned one and played on it. I mean, I've fiddled around with them before, and that's why I wanted one, but I never had one for my own to really just get to know and to play on. And so I kept track of their website, and finally they listed one, right? That one came into their store, and this was a beautiful guitar. So I was stalking this thing, right? I was obsessing over this guitar for weeks, actually months, really. For months, I was staring at this guitar, looking at it on their website, and it was still there for months and months. It was still there. So I finally decided to go in back to the store and check it out, give it a play, and maybe even walk home with a guitar. I'm one of those individuals that it takes a while, right? I don't know if you know any musicians, but I take my time. I really want to feel a connection with the instrument, and so that's what I did this first time. I went in to see if there was a connection, and unfortunately, there wasn't one. I don't know. It didn't feel right, and it didn't sound right to me. It didn't feel right, and so this wasn't the guitar for me. Fortunately, though, they had another American Fender Strat with a maple board, right? And so I tried the second one, and long story short, I have that guitar now. I didn't go home with it right away. It still took weeks, and another visit to fiddle with it. But going back to JC and Brian, they were just so gracious with me through that whole process. That the last time I came in, it was like 10 minutes before they were closing, and they let me sit in there for a good half an hour, 45 minutes, well after their closing time, so that I could see if this is the guitar for me. And it ended up being the guitar for me. I ended up taking it home that day, and I wouldn't have been able to do that without their help, right? Without them showing me that kindness, being so gracious with me. I think I'm really hyper aware that my eccentricities are an imposition on people, and they didn't make me feel like it was, right? They didn't make me feel like I was imposing. Again, they were super gracious, and I don't know if other musicians are like this, and if they've probably had to deal with this all the time, but they were really great with me. They treated me with kid gloves. They took care of me. The guitar came with an incredible guitar case, and I walked out of there confident that I made the right decision. I walked out of there confident that as my needs grow as a musician, that I can count on these guys. So I really appreciate their help, and I want to shine a light on both of them. So if you guys are listening out there, JC and Brian of Heyday Music, this week's shout out goes to you. Okay, so a few last things before we close out the episode. Number one, if you have anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to here on the show, please reach out and let me know. You can click that send a text link on the podcast version of the show, or you can just direct message me on the YouTube version. But yeah, send me a message. Let me know you want to give a shout out, who you want that shout out to go out to, and a personalized message. I'll read that here on the show, or you can actually even send me an audio recording of yourself giving a shout out. So either way, just reach out to me and I'll walk you through the process. But I think that would be great. I would love nothing more than to give you an opportunity to shine light on somebody in your life that's making a difference for the better. So again, reach out to me, click that send a text link in the podcast version, or send me a message on YouTube. The next thing is something that I completely forgot to do at the beginning of the episode, is to ask you, if you're not already following the show, please follow the show. Hit that plus sign at the top of whatever podcast app you happen to be listening on, or the subscribe button on YouTube. This is the single best thing you can do to help us grow this show. The algorithm and the platforms, I think, look at how many new subscriptions and follows a show gets every day or every week, and it uses that information then to base who they're going to push out to more people. So by following the show, I mean, only if you like it, but chances are, if you're still listening, you do like the show. So go ahead and hit that follow button on whatever app you happen to be listening on. Now, the second best thing you can do to help us grow this show is to share it, right? Easy peasy. It takes 3 to 5 seconds to hit that share button. Send it to somebody, just one person really, who you think might enjoy and appreciate the content, the message, the themes that we talk about here. People who like Star Wars, right? Another take on Star Wars. Go ahead and share it with them again. I would really, really appreciate it, and it would help us grow the show to the ultimate goal, at least short term. Kind of long term, but the goal to attend the 2027 celebration, Star Wars celebration in California as a podcaster, if not even a panelist. So any help that you can give to do that would really be appreciated.
Classified, really? Me too. Big secret.
Okay, so that's going to do it for today. Thank you again for tuning in. Next week, we'll tackle episode 4 of season 2 of Andor. So until then, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and may the Force be with you. For light and life.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company nor Lucasfilm Limited, and is intended for entertainment, educational, and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names and sounds and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is intellectual property of Path of the Jedi unless otherwise indicated.